Hey everybody, hope you're all doing really good. Today I'm working on an iPhone SE 2020 that was originally sent here for touch failure. The phone got here, touch sort of worked off and on, and I really could not find anything wrong with this. I wound up finding some components up near the front-facing camera connector that was dislodged. They were data communication-y stuff, so I thought that it might be related. Once I replaced those components, the touch issues completely went away. Sent the phone back, and this repair shop, they wound up with the police being called on them. The customer came in to get his phone, and I don't know the entire story, but I know that whenever he put the phone in his hands, touch still did not work, and for some reason he winds up calling the cops on these guys. So nevertheless, the phone is back here with me. Now, I had originally told these guys that I thought that it was going to be from like the CPU, from the CPU being disconnected, but then I found something wrong and fixed it, and anyways, it's back here for warranty work. So here's what this phone looks like at this very second. Now, one thing that I did note when it was here before is that this stickery stuff here is a little bit crinkled up, and now that it's back here, I'm looking like really close at it. I can really tell that this thing has had like impact here. You can actually see that this CPU shield is bent up, and it's actually detached from the board. And then the components that I replaced, many people in this business know that these components here commonly get dislodged. I really didn't think that would affect touch, but once I replaced those components, touch was fine. So what are you going to do? So as this phone is on its way back to me for warranty work, I bump into this post by Jesse Cruz on one of the phone repair groups, and he is talking about a touch issue on the iPhone SE2, the 2020 SE, which is the exact phone that I'm working on right here. And he's talking about a line here that did not have touch. And this is like, he's came up with some sort of a workaround here where he's figured out that there's a trace right next to the CPU that still has continuity. So he has actually tested for continuity down at the connector and then continuity up here at this trace next to the CPU. And Jesse is saying that he figured out that he had a good diode mode reading on this trace, but not down at the connector, which that would suggest that there's a break on the board, like, somewhere between the CPU and the connector. Whereas, whenever I'm running into this issue, I'm thinking that, this is an issue with the, a break under the CPU itself. So if we test this board in diode mode, and we look at the line in question here, it is going to be 8 pins over. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This pin right here. See, this board actually sort of threw me off because it gets what I would consider to be acceptable diode mode readings here. So in my mind, I really didn't flag this as anything unusual. Now watch what happens. Now my left hand the probe is really close to the CPU. I'm actually on the CPU shield. Watch what happens if I push on this board a little bit and flex it. Ooh, look at our readings jumping all around. Now I'm real steady here on my connection with this SPI line. But whenever this board moves a little bit, our diode mode reading just goes absolutely, completely haywire. So there is a break right here somewhere. Now, I don't understand how this could be a break, like, inside the board itself. And since we have this, like, smooshy thing going on the CPU shield, this has to be a break under the CPU, right? I'm going to try Jesse's workaround just in case, because I really, I can reball the CPU on this and I can send this back out the door working. But with a customer that's going to call the cops, no, I'm not going to do that today. I'll wind up refunding the money for the touch repair and sending it back. If I can't make this work, I'm not going to reball the CPU, because if anything happens to this and this thing doesn't work at all, well, then he's going to want a new iPhone SE. Okie dokie, I've got the board out of this thing, and now it's time to remove what is left of this sort of semi-bent up shield. I'm going to start by putting just a small slice in our little sticker there. Now looking under the microscope, we can see that we do have this little strip of glue here. So I'm just going to kind of warm this up a little bit and get this glue out of the way. It's not like that glue is actually holding anything. There we are. Now we also have this crazy little sticker that's been put on here for some reason. Alrighty then, let's go ahead and get this shield off of here, shall we? I'm going to go ahead and start warming this up. I have my air set at 430 degrees C with an airflow of 40. Now these shields, they like, if you grab it on one corner or the other, they tend to get into a bind. So as I warm this up, I'm actually going to stick my tweezers right in the center here. So I'm leaving this part of the video in complete real time. This will give everybody an idea of exactly how long I sit here and heat this for the shield to pop off. And as it starts to let go, I'll gradually move my hot air toward the back. There we are. So here we have a completely normal looking board. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. It does look like it's been manhandled a little bit. You know, I had originally told the repair shop owner that the damage was from a tool slip. That was up here by this front-facing flex connector. I replaced these components right here. Oh, look, me removing the shield just now caused some ball squeezage. That's going to be fine. And now I don't believe this had anything to do with touch. So where is this line we are talking about here? This line, it's actually right here by the baseband CPU. And if we look at the board that I'm looking at, that is actually going to be somewhere right in here, right? So I'm just going to kind of start carving away at this. It might be a little bit difficult to make things like a whole lot worse. So just going to make us a little cut here. It doesn't matter how many times I slice into logic boards with razor blades. For some reason, it just doesn't quite feel right. Cut here. These are the sorts of things that you would just have a really hard time. I mean, like, this would never get solved without the help of other people. Jesse actually learned this from an unrelated post that just, it had nothing to do with what he was working on. But he had recognized that the trace that he was missing at the connector was right next to a trace that another guy was able to find right here by the baseband CPU, and voila. Okay, I think I can see it down in there now. Right down in there. I believe it is actually right here. Like right here. Almost there. I can sort of see it coming to light right here. There's several traces, and I think we're going to be after this one right here in the middle. And you know, honestly, I believe that's the one, but I'm not really sure. So I'm going to see if I can get a beep out of it. We will put one probe over here on the pin down here and see if it beeps when I touch that trace. Nope. You know, it might actually be the next one up. So let me trim it back a little bit. Okay, we'll see if we get a beep on that one. Nope. That would also be a negative. All right, well, I'm really not sure what I'm looking at here. So I guess I'll just keep digging, honestly. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, now that's identifiable. We got ground plane, trace, trace, trace. So let's go back to cheating here and have a look at Jesse's post. All right, now that is visibly identifiable. So we're actually going to be soldering to this trace right here in the exact center there. That's going to be the one that I hooked to. Now, to keep from monkeying around here and damaging something that should otherwise not be damaged, I'm going to go ahead and mask off stuff here that I have no business touching. I'm just going to take me a little bit of UV mask here on the tip of my tool. Put a little there. Get just a little bit over there. A little bit more than that, please. Oh, come on, don't get it in the middle. I'm basically trying to cover up everything here that I don't want to solder to. So we'll cover up that one. There we are. Actually, let's make sure we got all this ground over here insulated as well. So I got the glue all cured up, and the next step here is to route us a nice big old long wire. This is 44 gauge magnet wire, which means it has a enamel coating. It may look just like regular old copper, but it does actually have insulation around it, so we don't have to worry about it shorting on things. So first I'm going to tin up just the tip. That's actually significantly more than just the tip. That's too much, so I'm going to trim a little piece off of there. Now we're going to solder this thing directly to the connector. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We want it to connect right there. Looking good. We're going to leave it just like that. Pretty much brand new. Now I'm cleaning the flux away from this right away because I'm going to need to glue this wire down. We can't just have a wire flopping around on the board everywhere. And it's difficult to get flux to, it's difficult to get glue to stick to flux. All right, so, I think I'm just going to take and run this wire along the outside the whole entire way. So I'll just take and sort of pull it over this way. Now, I need to be careful not to damage the enamel coating because we do want it to remain insulated. So I think that's actually going to be the beginning of my cable management here. Now this is green UV mask. Many people doing board repairs are very familiar with this stuff, but if you are new here or you're just watching for entertainment and you don't actually do this sort of thing for a living or for fun, yeah, that's what this is. This is mechanic green UV mask, and it stays nice and running until we hit it with a UV lamp, which I'm going to do right here. Dun 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 dun. All right, next step. That should be pretty well stuck down. Yeah, what I'm going to do here is basically just do my best to route this wire over to that trace I just excavated. And we're going to try to keep this wire from shorting on anything. As I said, it is enamel coated, but I still don't want to, give it a chance to rub or anything. So even though I'm going to be laying it like right on this ground plane, I'm still going to try to insulate it. Okay, that's actually looking pretty good, and I'd be silly if I didn't stop and glue it right there. Well, let's just get us another little dab of glue here. Pretty much right there. Now I think right here, I may actually go between the components and this connector. Yeah, I am. I'm actually going to just go ahead and lay this right on down in there. But I'm going to try to keep it from touching all those pins. So if I can just glue it to this glue here, that will be ideal. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Let me just go ahead and cook that right on down. There we go. All right, so let's just keep getting some glue in here. Oop. I'm going to get this all laid in here the way it should be. And then I'm going to accidentally snag my hand on this wire and tear it off the board. All right, let's bake this on down here. Almost there, actually. It's not that long of a jumper. It's just from one end of the board to the other, right? Okay, let's just go ahead and keep Routing this right down in here. Looking really good right there. Let's leave it. Cure that little speck. There we are. Okay, let's get some more UV lightage in here. Trying to get this tacked into place before it gets all crazy on me, which it's starting to do now. Come on, don't raise up. Stay down there. Right down there. And that puddle of glue. Come on, baby. Yeah, right there. There we go. Okay, cure it up. Almost there. I just got to glue this wire now right along the SIM tray. Yes, sir. We got touch working great, but you can't put a SIM card in anymore because I accidentally filled your SIM tray with glue. It's going to be fine. Okay, we're just ready here to make our turn. And this is where this wire is going to go where it needs to go, I hope. You know, what's the worst that could happen? It could burst into flames. You know what? This needs tacked down once more. We're going to come all the way out here to the point where we make the turn, which is right here. We'll just go ahead and turn. Oops, I didn't cook it long enough. Okay, while that is still sitting there, let me just go ahead and get us a decent sized blob of mask on there and cure it up real good. Because I don't want this to move. So we need to go ahead and get this wire trimmed off to length. It's right there where it needs to be. Kind of needs to be shaped a little bit right. I'm going to say probably right about there is good. Might be a little too long. There we are. And next for the real trick, to try to get that wire soldered on there, just get us a little bit of this flux down in there. There we go. This shouldn't be too bad. You know, it's just microscopic hairs that you breathe on and they break. Should be fine. Yeah, part of my problem here is the angle that I'm at. I'm right-handed and I'm trying to come at this at a weird, sort of a weird angle. Oh, you dirty rat. Come on, stay on there. Okay. There we are. Now, I'm not really sure that that stuck real good, so I'm going to go ahead and clean it up with some alcohol and sort of see what it looks like, but I think we've got it in place. Oh yeah, baby, that is just beautiful. Now, I've got to say, I might have already said this once or twice, but if this fixes this, I'm going to be absolutely shocked. Okay, maybe not really shocked, but the fact that I could push on the board and affect the diode mode reading of this line at the connector, that screams CPU disconnect, right? So let's see. So I'll just go ahead and slip this right back on into a housing here. Basically, what I'm going to do is hold one probe right up here, like near the CPU area, and the other probe here on the pin. And before, whenever I would push here, it was causing that diode mode reading to get all wacky. So back under the microscope here, I've got my meter in diode mode. I've got my red probe on ground, right up there, snuggled up next to the CPU as close as I can get it. And I've got my black probe here doing the probing. We are now getting a 0.34 on that line. And if I push with my left hand, push, 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 it is no longer fluctuating. So it's not a break under the CPU. Dude, okay, here just, I don't know, it's been a month or so ago, we had one of these SE2, whatever you want to call it, come in for a touch issue, and it was a repair shop. Their customer was interested in data, and I told them it was a break under the CPU. I told them if you lightly flex it, then you can get touch working, and I believe I even sent that one back without creating a backup. Anyways, so gosh, that means that this is not a CPU break. It means that there's a freaking break inside the logic board somewhere. So for the magical question, do we have working touch? Let's see if it even boots. All right, let's start with boot. All right. The phone is booting any minute. Passcode screen. No working touch. I probably soldered that to the wrong line, didn't I? I'm a miserable failure. All right, so right back under the microscope. Let's just have one more look at this. I think I need to go one trace to the right, guys. I think, honestly, I believe I've soldered this to the wrong trace. I'm not 100% sure, so we're just going to, screw with it. So I'm going to scratch this trace down next to it here. Much like that. And then I'm just going to kind of bump this thing with an iron and try to get it to move over a little bit. A little bit of flux down in there. There we are. Very little flux. And let's just see if we can coerce this wire into moving over, shall we? So I'm just going to kind of warm it up and nudge it over there a little bit. My micro pencil is a little bit dinged up from like smacking it on the cradle, missing the hole, but it's going to be fine. Ooh, almost there. Oh, yes. There we go. We will take it. And now, checking our diode mode reading at that connector again, we are getting straight to ground. Now, it wouldn't be an STS video unless I soldered that straight to ground, right? Maybe trial and error is not the best way to do this. Now, I mean, I'm not sure, but I may have actually just soldered that to ground right here. Let me just get in here and poke around at this. No. Nope, I don't think so. Let's test that once more. 0.11. Oh yeah, that's not a good place to have that wire soldered. Okay. Well, I'm going to take this wire off completely. Just disconnect it. There we are. Now what do we get for diode mode? We should be back to the original issue. 0.40. So I actually just blew that picture up a little bit and looked at it a little better, and I'm absolutely soldered to the wrong trace. So right back under the microscope here, and I had completely mistaken this. I just looked at the drawing wrong, that's all. We need this to be soldered to the first of the little close traces on this side over here, which is coming into view right now. Okay, so that right there is actually where this wire is supposed to be soldered. Right down in there just like that. There we go. Now, I'm reasonably confident that I did it properly this time. So I've got the board back in the housing so that I can be sure and get a little bit of a flex going on here. Now I've got my red probe on ground. I'm putting my black probe on this little SPI line, and we should get somewhat of a different reading, hopefully not ground. All right, so a 0.34, that is acceptable. Now I'm going to flex the board. All right, we are getting no variation whenever the board flexes. That's good, right? Here we go. Drum roll, please. We have an Apple logo. And we have working touch. Woo, woo, woo. Now, this phone before, it would have working touch, but if you would lightly flex or do anything to it, like touch wouldn't work. I mean, it wouldn't stay consistent. Now, after I worked on this phone, like I charged the battery, I flexed it, I touched it, I did everything I could to get this thing to mess up before sending it back to the customer, but as soon as their customer got it back in their hands, touch no longer worked. So all symptoms here, they just really point toward a disconnect on the CPU, but I mean, here we are, this thing has working touch, and I think I could get my finger in here and even like I'm thumbing the board, I'm flexing the board, and touch is remaining stable. So, I mean, what a deal. The iPhone SE 2020 edition has some sort of a break going on inside of the board. And according to this, and according to Jesse Cruz, it's not the CPU, guys. So anyways, that is going to be the end of this video. I'm going to do a couple more things to this to get it to get it tidied up. I'm not going to send it back out the door without the CPU shield on it. So I will most likely be like trimming part of this down to, you know, give a pathway for that wire to go through. And yeah, unbelievable. So anyways, thanks, Jesse. I appreciate it. All of you watching this channel, I encourage you to check out VCC Main Board Repairs. Jesse Cruz does amazing work. And I'll be honest, I would have just no-fixed this. If I didn't know that this little workaround could be done, this would have been a no-fix for me, because I'm not about to send a phone back with a reballed CPU for a guy that's like freaking trigger happy or something. So anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Have a good day. So now that I have this soldered to the proper trace, I'm going to go ahead and get it cleaned up. There we are. We'll just get us some fresh UV mask in here now that we know that this is all soldered together properly. It's basically like a brand new phone now. So to make this shield work, I'm going to see if I can't maybe just go ahead and get rid of the first and second little nubs here. I think I can just cut these off with a razor blade, right? There's no harm in that. There we are. Ooh, one more. Oh, yeah, baby. There we go. So now we have the same exact CPU shield, only now it's missing two of the legs. Wait, did I break those off? I broke those off in the wrong spot. I cut off the wrong legs. All right, so one more time here. I think we should be able to just go ahead and remove these legs. We're going to need this one gone. There we are. Cut that one off. There we are. Oh yeah, this is beautiful. And there we go. We have a nicely modified CPU shield that now has a spot for the wires to go through. Isn't that just marvelous? All right, so for the rest of the CPU shield that's not been modified, I'm going to go ahead and solder this right back onto the board. A little bit of flux here. Now it is kind of bent up here along the front edge, so I don't really expect it to go back on perfectly. I really just want to make this a working phone, and yeah, that's pretty much it. There we are. So to put the shield back on, it's basically just the exact same thing in reverse. Now, I usually try really hard not to mar up or scar and make these shields look like crap, but let's be completely honest, this one already looked like crap. I could snag one off of another iPhone, but I'm not going to. All right, so we've got our hot air at 430C, and we're going to do the same thing in reverse. Just like taking it off, only we're going to heat it and push down on it instead of pulling up on it. Oh yeah. This is like the shield flappy, the flappy shield here. All right, I'm just watching for the solder to start melting. Come on. All right, here we go. One side's down. Other side's going down. There really is somewhat of a finesse to this to keep from like barbecuing the board. There we go. There's our front down. Okay, that's got our shield all the way back on. Now I'm not going to nitpick this too much because this shield is bent, and as it goes down in the front, it raises up in the back, and it's like it's teeter-tottering back and forth, so we're just not going to deal with that. And then also all this stuff that's peeled up like this, I'm just going to kind of pretend like we didn't see that. So here we are, folks. Here is our beautifully refurbished logic board. This iPhone SE 2020 edition is going to live to see another day. We've got our micro jumper here coming in right alongside the SIM tray. It sort of finagles around here around some stuff, and it solders to the connector. All right, so I did go ahead and stick some Kapton over this to keep the metallic flakes and stuff that are in this from going like everywhere. Woo, so I am fully reassembled. This thing is back up and running with working touch, and I would like to see if I flex it one way, if I still get touch. I do. Flex it the other way. Still get touch. I do. And just like back whenever I was testing the iPhone 6 Plus for touch failure after a board level repair, I would take and I would grab a fixed point and touch here, like right here, and then flex the phone. And if for any reason it loses touch, it'll actually drop that slider bar. This thing is rock solid, and it is not losing touch. You know, this phone behaved like this once before I shipped it back though. However, with the fluctuating diode mode readings when pressing on the board, pretty sure that this is fixed now. Unbelievable. Broken traces inside the board and not cold solder joints under the CPU. Sweet.